my lovely mother started dating. I remember coming home from a basketball practice in 10th grade, and when I opened up the door, right there in the living room was this guy. His name was Mike. Mike was my mom's new friend. As her oldest kid, I thought I was the golden child. Why would she need another man? I'm here, Mom, all right? And I remember Mike standing up. He comes up to me, he said, "Hey, your mom's told me so much about you." Now I'm looking at Mike and I say, "She ain't tell me anything about you." And so like any other boyfriend that she had, my goal was trying to make his life miserable so that they realized that this can't work. But instead of him giving in, he moved in. And now he was trying to be my dad, a friend, a mentor, someone on my side, and I didn't let him. He would actually show up to my basketball games, which is weird because most of the time, none of my family members or mom could come to my basketball game. My mom worked 2 jobs. It was just something, but he would show up to every game. When he first started doing that, I would still take the bus home when other kids would go home with their parents because I didn't want to go home with him. He showed up to my away games, and I didn't play a lot, all right? My position on the basketball team was water guard, all right? So at the end of the bench, right next to the water, and he would show up, and he would always bring a camera. Mike worked in our small town in a factory where most people worked. But Mike's dream job was to be a photographer. Not just a photographer, but a photographer for the Dallas Cowboys. But instead of taking a picture of the Dallas Cowboys, he had to take pictures of me. And he would take pictures of me even though I didn't ask him to be there. And after every game, he would print me pictures of the little time I played basketball. And it was at that point where I started letting him into my life. Now fast forwarding to when I had my ACT my junior year. One of those days on my basketball games, we were driving back like every other away game, long Texas road with long conversation. And I remember being a brat. I remember being a brat to him. And I remember looking at his camera and saying, "Why do you care about this camera? It's not your real job." And instead of getting mad at me, Michael was very patient. Michael pulled over on the side of the highway and he looked at me. Everything in that truck made noise but the horn, all right? And he parked the truck and he looked at me and he said, "Son, I know you're upset about that ACT score, but I want you to understand something. It's not about what you know. It is about what you do. It's not about how much intelligence you have. It is about how much impact you make. What are you going to do about it?" And it meant so much to me. And I remember going into my senior year writing all the things I wanted to do. I wanted to get my first all-A report card. I wanted to go to college. None of my parents went to college. I had no idea what that process looked like. I wrote down all the things I wanted to do and I became obsessed with that list. And my last semester of my senior year, I got my first all-A report card. I went out to college. I ended up graduating with honors in the front of my class and graduated in 4 years. But honestly, my greatest achievement is getting that college degree. Not only was getting the college degree, but it's because seeing my mother get her college degree. From there, my brother graduated from Midwestern State and he ended up getting his degree as well. Mike ended up being a photographer for the Dallas Cowboys. What's amazing about this picture and the times that I saw Michael before any of my accomplishments, this was the first man I've seen woman achieve his dreams. And it was so amazing to see that people can actually achieve their dreams. But the reason why you don't see Mike in any of our graduation photos, it's not because he was taking a photo. It was because at a young age of 47 years old, when I was a sophomore in college, I get a call from my mom that Mike is in the hospital and he passed away. And that is when I realized all the things I achieved was based off of the motivation of time and that time I had with Michael. And it wouldn't be without that moment in that life that I had to go that low to realize how sweet time is. Michael was my friend, my mentor, and the person I saw turn a dream into reality.
If Mike was alive today, I would tell him how much of a difference he made in my life. One of the biggest lessons Mike taught me was that we can all achieve our dreams, regardless gender, race, age, socioeconomic status. We can actually become the person we want to be. Growing up and seeing someone like Mike actually go after their dreams really gave me the confidence to believe in mine. If you have a Mike in your life that has helped you get to where you are, share them this story, send them a text and tell them how much you appreciate them.
This was the first time I'd seen my dad cry in my life. It was May of 2010, working my summer job as a lifeguard, living at home with my parents. And this day happened to be just one of those days where it seemed like everything was going wrong. One thing after another, piling up, the stress just building. And I knew the second I walked in the door, because I was driving home, it was all just gonna evaporate. I'd come in, I'd say, hey mom, I'd give her a hug. Dad'd be in the living room in his chair. Hey Bri, how was your day? Go give him a hug. And when dinner time rolled around, we'd get up, we'd fill our plates with food, we'd go into the living room and do one of our favorite things together, which was watch a movie. The stress is evaporating and I'm in one of my happy places. And at one point, my dad went up to check on my grandfather who was taking a shower. He'd been living with us for about 10 years at that point. He was 83 now, so he needed a little more help getting around. So about a minute after Dad got up, we're sitting there, peace, silence, and serenity. And all of that shattered in an instant. Before I knew it, I'd grabbed the cordless phone and I was running up the stairs. I turned into the bathroom, and when I got in, I saw he had pulled his father's naked, still dripping wet body into his lap and was holding him. My grandfather's arms were draped back, his head was back, his mouth was open. And when all the emotions were rising, it was like my mind split down the middle. There were only two choices I had at that time, and I knew no matter which of those two I chose, my life was going to change forever. I knew that in that moment I had a choice between action and inaction. Have you ever been at a time in your life where it was so crystal clear that you had two choices? For you, it might not have been a life-threatening emergency. For you, it might have been that moment when you finally said, I'm done and I'm walking out. You said, I'm leaving this job. I'm not staying in this unhealthy relationship. When you finally decided to say, I love you and I'm ready for this. When you finally decided to look in the mirror for yourself and say, today is the day and we're doing it. That day, I decided to take action. So I said, Dad, we need to get him flat. Mom, here's the phone, call 911, tell them where we are, tell them what happened. We lift my grandfather's still dripping wet body naked out and lay him flat on the ground. I know I need to check his vitals, so I come down. I put my head by his mouth to listen and feel for breathing. I'm looking down the plane of his chest to see if his chest is rising and falling and rising and falling. And then I take my two fingers to his carotid artery to feel for a heartbeat. And as I'm doing my vital check, I'm down there. There's no breath. There's no movement in his chest. But there was the slightest little heartbeat still pumping. So I got down and started giving rescue breaths. I'm down there, my body is shaking. It feels like I can't keep going, but I know this is all I can do until someone else, an EMT, a doctor gets here. I have to keep going, but my arms are shaking, my legs are shaking, and I'm gonna keep doing it the best I can until I collapse. And then finally, after what felt like 30 or 40 minutes, I was tapped on the shoulder and the EMT is there. I tried to save a man's life that day. But as the head EMT came downstairs and explained that he had had a massive heart attack, he had likely died instantaneously, and that the heartbeats that I'd felt were nothing more than an echo or an aftershock. It felt like I failed. I hadn't saved anybody. Until later that night, when my dad looked at me and he said, Brian, if you hadn't been there, I wouldn't have known what to do. And for the rest of my life, I would have doubted that if I'd only known what to do, that my dad would still be alive today. Because you were here and you acted and you didn't hesitate, I know it was his time. and I can let him go in peace. Sometimes you'll save exactly who you intend to. Sometimes someone you didn't even see or didn't expect will benefit from your efforts. And sometimes the person you save will be yourself. And I learned one of the most important lessons I've ever learned. You never know whose life you might save by choosing to act.
I always wanted to ask my father one question, and I could never find the courage my whole life to ask him. My father and I, we had a very strained relationship. He was a very tough guy, and he took it out on everybody around him, and especially his son, which was the only and the firstborn male. He wanted me to To toughen up. At one point in time, I had a program that I taught once a month in Toronto, where he lived and where I grew up in Canada. So he'd pick me up from the airport, and I go, "Hi, Dad," and he'd go, "Hello." I go, "How you doing?" He'd go, "Good." I'd say, "How's Mom?" "Good. Do you have to ask so many questions?" And that would be a good conversation. And so I swore to myself that one of these times when he's bringing me back and forth to the airport, I'm gonna ask him. And so he picks me up from the airport, and I go, "Dad?" He goes, "What?" I said, "I have a question for you." He goes, "What do you want?" And I take a big deep breath. I go, "Dad, how come in my entire life you have never, ever, one time, ever, once said to me, 'I love you'? How come not once?" And I'm afraid to look over. I've got my hand ready to block the punch when it comes. And I'm looking over, and for the first time in my life, I'm looking at this man crying. I have never seen this man even close to cry before in my life. Tears are flowing from his eyes, dripping all over his shirt. His chin is quivering, and all of a sudden he says, "Harv, don't you know I love you?" I said, "Give me a hug." And he gives me a hug, and I say to him in his ear, I said, "Dad, I love you more than everything. I love you more than everything." I'm so happy that I finally cleared this with him, because just a short time later, he died. And I learned one of the most important lessons of my life. Say it while you can. If you don't tell your husband or your wife or your children that you love them enough, you tell them now. If you don't tell your parents that you love them, you forgive them, what you tell them now. Say it while you can. Say it while you can.
My wife came into my life and started to ask me, "Why is it that you don't talk to your family that often?" And I told her the story. Like, I don't think they love me. I don't think they want me. I think they don't appreciate me. I don't think they care, honestly. So my brother is elder than me, about 3 years. And so the grandparents mother him with love. And then my parents mother him with love. So he's getting love from everywhere. What would happen is often I would be wearing the same clothes that he wore to school, because it was always first used by him. I get everything secondhand. Say there was a mattress on the floor, and that was for 2 people. Right? That was me and my brother. Now, how brothers are, me and my brother start fighting for space because my brother was bigger than me, so he would push me to a corner. He would like go, no, I need more space. I'm bigger, elder than you. And as we were arguing and fighting, my mom stormed out of her room and goes, Ajit, go to sleep. And I'm like, but I can't go to sleep. I don't have enough space, and brother is fighting me for the space, and I can't really sleep in this little space. And my mom goes, no, Ajit, go to sleep. I take my pillow, I bury my head into it, and I start sobbing. In India, when somebody is a loved child, they call them Mera Lal, which simply means you're the loved one. All the time I used to say, he's your Lal, I'm your Har, which means he's the one that you really love, and I'm the one that you're indifferent towards or you don't care. What I was really trying to say is I don't feel the love. And why am I hated so much? Our lives started to change a little bit because now I was growing older, I was getting into my teens, and my brother left the city. And as he was moving away, the expectations started to rely a lot more on me. And so it was constantly told, hey, go become an engineer. You need to go become an engineer. You need to study hard so you can become an engineer. And as I was studying for these exams, as I was preparing for these exams, I realized that if what I'm studying right now is what I have to do for the next 4 years, or for the rest of my life, I'm going to be miserable. And that kind of gave me a dimension of saying, hey, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because my mom says so. I've taken many chances in life after that, and every time I would take a chance, it would seem like the stupid thing to do, but I will constantly take them because I just knew that what I really wanted was, I need to be successful, I need to get out of this house. And I was able to do that by the time I was 28, 29. Seven years later, what I'm realizing on the inside is that my health was deteriorating. I couldn't sleep without a drink. I had grown even more distant to my parents. It was almost like it's like a task that you check off. I'm like, I should call mom at least once a week. So it would be one of those things where I'm actually doing something else while she's on speaker, right? So there was no connection. My wife came into my life and started to ask me, why is it that you don't talk to your family that often? And I told her the story, like, I don't think they love me. I don't think they want me. I think they don't appreciate me. I don't think they care, honestly. She kind of said, why don't we do this? We were going to India just to travel. And she was like, why don't we go together? And why don't you bring your parents on and bring your brother and your sister-in-law and their kids to come together, and we'll go to like a retreat center and just hang out for a couple of days, like just 4 or 5 days, just hang out. And I was like, well, I have never done that. We haven't hung out since ever, probably. And so we bring the family together. We find this retreat center close to the city that I'm from, Jaipur, and we all go there. And one of the evenings, and this is I think the second to the last evening, where my now wife and then girlfriend suggested, hey Ajit, we are here. Like, this is the time you can actually have a conversation about this that you've been talking about. And we're sitting all across the table, the same table, and I start sharing. More than me sharing, it was more a question for the table. It was like, okay, what is it that we feel about each other? Let's share some honest truths about each other and what we're proud of, what our concerns are, so forth. And my turn comes and I say, I've never felt loved by mom and dad, and they were right there, and I've never felt that the bonding and that connection. And they listen very quietly, and they listen very quietly. They listen and hear me all out. And then my dad asked me a question, and the question was, Ajit, you have two hands, right? I'm like, yes. Like, your right hand and the left hand, which one do you love more? And I was like, both of them. I mean, there's not one hand that I love more. And so he said, that's like having kids. You don't love one of your hands more, and you don't love one of your kids more. But when one of your hand is in some pain, you just pay attention to it. You have to, because it's in pain right now, right? But as soon as it's healed, you don't pay attention to it anymore. You treat them equally. You love them equally. In the moment, it was just a metaphor. but it became my truth eventually, that it's not that somebody loves you or somebody doesn't love you, and especially parents. It's not that you love somebody or don't love somebody. In context, for example, it's me getting an oversized shirt wasn't about they loved my brother. It was about them not being able to afford new shirts all the time. Me getting the second-hand bicycle wasn't about them not wanting to give me a new bicycle, but it was about them being able to only afford one bicycle at a time. That was a big release for me, because I had held on to that for all of my life, and I was driven from a place of I'll show you. Only recently, when we actually had a child, I realized that as much power the word love has, it doesn't do justice to what you feel when you have a child. What I have for my son, I can't explain. I can't explain because it transcends love. It's important that we know how loved we are. The fact that we take up space means something, that we are worthy of love, giving and receiving. And that no matter who we are, the way we show up in the world is deserving of love. And if ever you feel unloved, remember that all you need to do is change your perspective, for love is always there.
For 2 years, I did not speak a single word to my father. We had some differences of opinion. And my father came and fell at my feet, putting his head on my feet, crying and begging, "Son, please, speak to me." I remember ignoring that request. My mom said, "Son is your dad, don't do that to him, please." And just because my mother said, I started talking to him. Every single year, from the year 1996 until 2009, I went home to see my parents. And I wanted to say, "Sorry, Dad, I shouldn't have done this to you." And whenever I went home, there's this 3-lettered word called ego that told me, "You were right. Why do you have to say sorry?" That morning, when I received a call from my mom, my father passed away. He was a patient of Parkinson's disease. I went for the funeral. I remember putting my head at my dad's feet for the one final time, dropping a few unseen tears who nobody would ever know until I told the story to you. And with those tears saying, "Dad, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done this to you. I shouldn't have done this to you." You never know how long people are with us. And you cannot take a chance to mess up with the most amazing experiences of love just because something happened. Ladies and gentlemen, forgiveness is the foundation of a meaningful, deep, true relationship. To let go if somebody has hurt us, and to say a sorry if we have hurt somebody. And letting things go is what makes relationships profound, meaningful, and deep. Which is why I say, when you say a sorry, it doesn't mean that you are wrong. It just means that you value the person and the relationship more than being right. You have to choose. What do you want? Being right or love? And if you want love, sometimes you have to say sorry, even if you are